So the next track on the record is the first story, and it's called Harder Harmonies. The song Harder Harmonies is... Archer 1 kind of introduces that first chunk of songs talking about the feeling of abandonment based on that loss, but also based on that kind of feeling like you don't fit, like that descent into some sort of madness is a corny word, but some sort of unrest and uncertainty. And the song Harder Harmonies, I think, is the best introduction of the three into that, in that it most accurately, I think, describes the character. So there's two things going on. There's the story itself, which is kind of a bit of a generic story, I think, in some ways, by which I mean I didn't think of one specific individual in history or someone that I knew or anything. I thought about a lot of different people and kind of collectively fused them. So it talks about some unnamed character who is very capable in one regards, but very helpless in the other. And in specifically, he's a brilliant artist or musician. He's able to do these incredible things, and this one thing in his life makes so much sense. But then when it comes to functioning in everyday life, it's an impossibility. He can, sit at a piano and play the most beautiful song in the world, but when it comes to social interaction or justifying your presence in the world or justifying your art in the world, he's completely helpless. And it ends with another kind of ambiguous scene where in the end he empties a pill bottle and drops it to the floor. And it's kind of supposed to be open-ended. I think the obvious conclusion is that he commits suicide. And I guess I was kind of thinking about, any number of artists, Hemingway and Sylvia Plath and Kurt Cobain and like all these people who were phenomenally talented, but couldn't reconcile that with everyday life. And then the author, the one telling the story, throughout is kind of interceding with these questions about whether or not he's meant to suffer the same fate. He's so capable of doing one thing, but the thing that he really wants to do is to arrange things properly in his head and be able to go out and live a normal life, but he's unable to do it. So it's that like tinge of fear about whether or not that artist's fate is the author's fate. So that's pretty much Harder Harmonies. I think more than anything, the song is meant to illustrate how most people with those talents, and I don't know for sure, but I wonder if those people would trade that for the ability to be normal. And part of it is, I think, and part of what's most interesting to me is that a lot of these people throughout history, these tortured artists, are the ones who seem to see the world the most in depth, who seem to really take everything in a way that the rest of us aren't capable of doing, that they have a better sense for that. And it's almost like it's overwhelming for them to be put in a position where they can really see the world in this way and are able to manifest that in some way into a painting or into a book or into a song or whatever, but that talent is eventually their undoing. And that's part of, I think, what the song is about. And also there's the lyric at the beginning, or this first paragraph, where he's talking about looking at old pictures and seeing who he was as a child and how simple the world was, and then how complicated it got as he went on. And it's something that we kind of talked about in the two songs on the split we put out with Touche Amore, like this idea that you're promised a certain future, and then as you develop and you become less naive and you become more aware of what goes on around you, you find out that what you were promised isn't what you've received. And it's trying to reconcile those two things. So it works on a couple different levels. I think it is more that he is, because of this loss, he's focused more intently on the tragedy and the sadness and these awful things that happen to people. And he's unable to escape that, or he's more accurately unable to justify it, I think. And that's the feeling of abandonment, I guess. That's the feeling like there's no point in continuing or putting forth the effort, because he has been scarred by this instance and thusly focuses almost exclusively on the bad things that happen. And he can't bring himself to be a normal person in a regular life because it doesn't seem right, I guess. I think for the character in the story, It's the social awkwardness. It's the inability to be for the character in the story. I think so, but not for the narrator, not for the author. And I think that's a part of that character. I think one of the things that shows up most often, and one of the things I wanted to come across the most, is this kind of like chosen darkness, I guess, and the self-pity in that character. It's a big question, like, because of this loss, are you that way because of the loss, and do you have no control over that, or are you choosing to dwell on it? Are you choosing to stay back inside of that loss? Are you making your own life the way that it is? So I think part of the author comparing himself to the character is misguided and, in a way, self-loathing, I think.